Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. My name is Dr. K.R. Ramamohan. I'm Associate Professor, Head Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to talk about a module on diffusionism from the paper Theories and Methods in Social and Cultural Anthropology. Before we begin this topic, let us see what are the learning objectives of this concept on diffusionism. To introduce students the history of anthropological thought by tracing its historical development of diffusion school. To classify the course of historical development, academic and anthropological importance in terms of its development. To focus on the founding thinkers and anthropologists, theories and ethnographic researchers that have constructed histories of anthropology, British, American and German, in the historical process. To explore the formation and emergence of anthropology as a discipline in the 19th century to the late 20th century. So what is diffusionism? Diffusionism is the term used by anthropologists and as well as sociologists to account for the spread through time of various aspects of culture, the artistic traditions, language, music, various myths, religious beliefs, social organization, and the technological ideas from one society or from one culture to another group or to another cultures. So, diffusionism refers to the diffusion or transmission of different cultural aspects or different cultural characteristics or cultural traits from the common society to other societies. Diffusionism as a school of understanding or a school of thought have vehemently criticized that the concept of psychic unity of mankind from classical evolutionists, in a sense that classical evolutionists have expressed that all societies, all cultures have passed from one particular phase of development to another particular phase of development. In a sense that there are certain commonalities and there is a psychic unity which that human beings are not aware that the same development has taken here and the same development had also taken place in another context, and that they recount that perhaps this could be a unity and uniformity of these developmental things, and they says that mankind had same or similar kind of progress from a cultural point of view or cultural development. They believed that most inventions or things which have come up in cultures happen just once, and other men are capable of imitation. These inventions were then diffused to other places. In a sense that diffusionism says that but inventions might have taken place at one particular point, and later on they went on to other cultures through various modes. It could be the relation of a trade relation, or they have communication with other countries. When we go back and see how the early trade took place between two cultures and groups, where goods were being exchanged and transmitted from one culture or one group to another group. In that process, perhaps, most of the cultural traits have been diffused from one point to other points in the society or other cultures in the society. So the basic argument or the basic point in diffusionism is that an invention might have taken place in one common place, and later on it went to other places which is being diffused in a sense. So this also gives an idea that most of the invention or most of the creation might have taken place only in one point, where the other cultures, they simply imitated. Now, why they imitated? The question arises with that, are they uninventive? Because it's only just a passive kind, so human brain cannot, no need to put a thought exercise. So just simply you can borrow that element into your own culture. Now, why societies adopt or take one cultural trait into their own existing cultural system? Unless there is an economic value, unless there is a functional value, they don't take into their own cultural system or into their own society. There should be an utility value. Only then they can see, yes, this is perhaps useful in my culture. Perhaps this gives a good dividends in my culture. Then they try to incorporate this new cultural trait into their existing cultural pattern. So in a sense that most of the diffusion aspects of cultural traits are taken by other cultures because they see there is a functional value, there is a set of economic value, only then it can be taken. Now, the other aspect of diffusion is that all cultures might have originated at one point and then spread to other world. So they opposed the notion of progress from simple to complex forms held by the classical evolutionists, that societies started from basic hunting gathering, then they started with pastoral, then they started with this scheme. They don't diffusionism are a little skeptical in a sense that if you look at the entire world, invention took place only in one point. Invention did not take place simultaneously in various other aspects. So if you look at the contemporary world, one particular cultural trait might have originated somewhere, and now we have practice today. For example, take religion. Buddhism. Buddhism is seen everywhere in the world, but the origin was somewhere. Or technology as origin somewhere, and we use this technology, or one particular religious thing which has been origin somewhere, or one cultural item which is origin somewhere, and we adopt that. So how did this happen in a historical process? So diffusionism says that these things have been diffused into different cultures. And why other cultures did not get these cultural traits? They say that perhaps there could be more obstacles, in a sense that geographical obstacles, transportation obstacles, communication things. Cultures have been cut off in terms of mountains, in terms of rivers, in terms of other communication things, that one cultural trait did not penetrate into other cultural trait because there are certain obstacles in passing this element to other societies. Now, diffusionism as a school of thought has been given, says that one cultural trait has been invented, has been directed or indirectly taken by the other cultural groups. There are other aspects in taking this diffusion, is that one cultural trait may get incorporated, it may has its own original form for a long time unless it is being changed for certain reasons. And why and how one cultural trait takes long time to get incorporated depends upon that culture. So one cultural trait which has been taken into that culture, perhaps it could be modified to suit the local needs. It may lose its own original form which has taken from the common ground. So diffusion takes place in these aspects. Now, diffusion of cultural traits always takes from a high-end culture or from a low-end culture. In anthropologically, when we say that developed societies to the underdeveloped societies. To put it very simply, or we can say that high points to the low point culture, but not vice versa. There could be no diffusion from simple things to the highly complex society, but vice versa, that the highly complex society gives this new cultural trait to the low technologically less advanced society. And sometimes these cultural traits may take a long time to get penetrate into this another culture for variety of reasons. So perhaps they may discard it if they don't see any practical utility value for their own well-being. Now, diffusion is being explained by three different schools of thought when we have this British diffusionists, we have German diffusionists, and we have American diffusionists. In the British diffusionist schools, we have three significant scholars. One is Smith, and we have Perry, and we have Rivers. These three scholars or proponents have opined that the whole civilization or the whole cultural things might have started in Egypt. Egypt was the center for all civilization. Most of the civilizational things might have started in and around Egypt. Because Egypt was flourishing, it was the first civilization, civilized society where many things have started and invented there in terms of government, in terms of social organization, in terms of polity. All these things have surrounded. For that matter, most of the diffusionists believe that all the civilization has centered in Europe. For example, government, ancient law has been started in Rome, and government is the functions of government started in terms of Rome, and these things then it had been percolated to other cultures in this world. So in a sense that when they say that the civilization started in Europe and specifically in Egypt, so hence why the British definitions are also called Egyptologists or pan-Egyptian diffusionists, in a sense that the support that civilization started in the valley, this Nile Valley, and Egypt is the center for civilization. So when they're doing ethnographic works in South America and in other parts of the world, they found that most of the elements which have been taken, and they see the similarities between Egyptian culture and the other cultures, and they try to establish a link. Perhaps in the historical process, Egypt, the travelers might have come to Egypt, and it has been came from the civilizational cradle from the centers to these places. Another school of thought, which are also called as the German diffusionists, started with Ratzel, Grabner, and Frobenius. These people thought that the concept of culture circles, in German they call culture groups, and cultures have they are formed in small clusters, or says that cultures around in these circles within the Europe. So when culture centers around these circles, it has been diffused into other parts. First, they have these similar cultural patterns in one circles, and with these circles have gone historically penetrated to other parts of the world. And the other important school in diffusion is the American diffusionists, started with the Franz Boas, White, and Kroeber, have floated this concept called diffusion takes place in the concept of culture areas. Why and how one particular area or one geographical area have the same similar pattern, and some other areas have the same similar pattern of culture. So in a sense that we can understand that culture area concept, in a sense that these diffusion cultural elements have been come towards to these concept of culture area, and they give this concept of that diffusion might have taken place in these culture areas. Now, if you look at the diffusionism as a school of thought, both Egyptologists, Pan-Egyptian, British, and German diffusionists did not explain the concept of culture change. They are devoid that they say that all cultures have started from one point and they have been diffused to other things. But how and why this culture change, both the schools did not accept. But how? American diffusionists, especially Kroeber, says that cultures basically or societies are basically super organic, in a sense that man are a little bit inventive, and we need to see from an historical point of view. That's what Franz Boas concept is that historical particularism. Why and how a particular trait has come into that, perhaps it could have see from an historical perspective where it has come from, whether it has originated in its own place or whether it has come from a different place, as a given a new understanding from the area of culture area, which Kroeber says that people are more cultures can be configurated, or what we call a cultural configuration by Kroeber. So in a sense that diffusionism takes on this concept that most of the cultures have started at one point and has been taken into other cultures by various ethnographic studies. Diffusionism also can be incorporated into Indian context. If you look at the whole Indian society, we can also say how there are some scholars who says that there are certain centers, civilization centers, where language has been, or religion or certain religious practices might have originated somewhere and it has been percolated to other parts of in India. So in a sense that if we understand the whole cultural process across India, diffusionism can be taken to some understood in a sense that how and why certain cultural traits are being borrowed, or and how and why culture certain have come from one point to another points of geographical areas, that this trait might have not been here, but this have come from other ways. So diffusionism is also given a new understanding in terms of migration, and why when people migrate from one place to another place, they take these cultural things to other place and they get incorporated, they bring this new thing there. Perhaps it could be syncretized with the local thing and gives some kind of a form and meaning to these new cultural practices. So migration, historical particularism also give an understanding from an American school of diffusionism, saying that because of these historical contacts, that the cultures might have been spread through various aspects, and we can understand that the cultural evolution might have been also looked into from this perspective. Thank you. So to make it more summarize this whole concept of diffusionism, the major historical developments in the discipline of anthropology, and we have a series of chronological uh, developments at the end of 20th century, where diffusionism did provide an explanation of how this spread of culture traits from one point to different points, uh, from starting with one center saying that this trait might have originated here and it went on to other cultures. But it could not explain uh, the origin of one particular trait. If you ask that where this trait come from, nobody can explain. But diffusionism simply says that this has come through diffusion. But the other aspect of explanation, that where did it come from, has been not clearly explained by the diffusionist thinkers. Well, in focusing on the spread of culture traits from one particular area and its acceptance by the other geographical areas or other culture areas, it has also minimized the capacity of creativity of human beings, which has been challenged by many anthropologists or anthropological thought process, that why human beings are devoid of critical thinking or lack of thinking. Does it mean that other cultures don't have a thought process to sustain a long period of time? Diffusionism simply says that other cultures don't have a mechanism, or they are uninventive in their own things. That's why they simply incorporated a particular cultural trait or a particular technology for their own benefit. So this is little contradictory when we say that diffusionism has given us that one particular cultures have all come from one origin. Well, in fact, one of the major debates of anthropological literature of in earlier times was on the concept of diffusion and invention. But this debate was there, whether why only certain cultures are inventive and why certain other cultures are not inventive. So in that sense, diffusionism has given a more level of understanding to look into other possibilities, whether human beings are creative or human beings are simply uninventive and they are simply passive. So it was that diffusion could not account for the independent intervention or for the culture's change. This explanation is not given by the diffusionist thinkers. Situations of prolonged period of contact between two or more cultures, which is adhered to its own distinctive way of those in which culture contact leads to selective borrowing, is a threat to the validity of general principle of diffusionism. Again, also the other remaining unexplained is the attribution of that cultures have no contacts with other cultures, which is a debating concept within the school of diffusionism, and how the exhibiting similarities and parallels with each other cultures are not being, why certain cultural trait has a similarity in many cultures, and why there is a parallel which has also been discussed thoroughly in the diffusion. Well, notwithstanding the limitations, the diffusionist school of thought has captured the attention of anthropologists for a long time, in a sense that nurturing the faculty of critical appraisal. Well, more seriously, the diffusionist school represented a modest attempt between how these cultural traits have been passed, and it was not easy to discount as it's principally devoid of any merit. We cannot say that. But if you look at most of the elements today in modern society, how and why certain things have been diffused, and the origin might be somewhere else, but the present context cultures practice a particular cultural traits which is noteworthy, and we have to give some merit to the diffusionist understanding of a cultural trait. In fact, diffusionism provided the foundation for the development of crucial ideas and concepts that were employed not only by anthropologists but other social science disciplines like geography, sociology, political science, economics also have taken the concepts of diffusionists, that why certain governmentality has seen in this particular area which has been not inventive, but it has been come from other side. So what are the reasons for these things? So in this way, it is basically diffusionism is like a melting point where many disciplines have borrowed these concepts of that while how these cultural traits have been invented somewhere and it has been practiced and followed elsewhere. Is it due to migration, or is it due to trade, or is it due to communication, and how and why it becomes a long-term change, and why it has been incorporated, why it lost its original form, why it still gained its original form, and how it has been synchronized into local cultures. All these things are a good understanding from cultural traits from a diffusionist point of view. Thank you.